I stood in the center of the open plan office, my resignation letter in hand, while my boss, Derek Lancaster, smirked at me from behind his mahogany desk. "You're quitting?" he scoffed, leaning back in his leather chair. His expensive watch glinted under the fluorescent light as he crossed his arms. "To start your own business? Oh, that's rich." I swallowed my anger, keeping my voice steady. "Yes, Derek. I've made my decision." The entire office had gone quiet. My colleagues, once my friends, now watched with an air of morbid curiosity. Derek let out a loud, mocking laugh. "You? Running a business?" He turned to the others. "Guys, get this. Madeline here thinks she's CEO material." A few awkward chuckles followed, but most people remained silent, shifting uncomfortably in their chairs. Derek leaned forward, his eyes glinting with amusement. "Mark my words, Maddie, you'll crawl back here within 2 months, begging for your job. And you know what?" He smirked. "I'll make sure to remind you of this moment before I turn you away." I clenched my fists but forced a smile. "Let's see about that." And with that I walked out, determined to prove him wrong. The first few weeks were brutal. I had poured every dime of my savings into launching my digital marketing agency. My tiny apartment became my office, my kitchen table my desk. I barely slept. I reached out to potential clients nonstop. Most ignored me, some laughed in my face, and a few offered condescending advice about being realistic. But then one client took a chance on me. A struggling e-commerce startup needed a complete branding overhaul. I gave it everything I had, and it worked. Word spread. The results were undeniable. Soon, one client turned into 3, then 5, then 10. My company, Elevate Digital, was born. While I was grinding to build my dream, Derek's company, Lancaster Marketing, was sinking. His arrogance had blinded him. He ignored market trends, refused to innovate, and burned bridges with clients. The company hemorrhaged money. Key executives jumped ship. Then the announcement came. Lancaster Marketing had filed for bankruptcy. I read the headline twice, letting it sink in. The company that Derek had used to humiliate me was collapsing. And that's when I saw it, an opportunity one couldn't pass up. 2 months after Derek had laughed in my face, I sat across from a corporate lawyer reviewing the paperwork. "You're certain about this purchase, Ms. Carter?" the lawyer asked, adjusting his glasses. I smiled. "Absolutely." The next morning, Lancaster Marketing officially became mine. But I didn't just buy it, I rebuilt it, salvaging what was left and integrating it into my growing empire. And then came the best part, delivering the news to Derek. Derek thought he had been called into a meeting with the new owner of the company. He walked into the boardroom with his usual overconfident swagger. Then he saw me. His face paled. "No, you've got to be kidding me." I leaned back in the chair he once occupied, my fingers steepled in front of me. "Surprise." Derek's jaw clenched. You bought my company?" "Your former company," I corrected with a small smile. He looked like he had been punched in the gut. His hands trembled as he gripped the chair across from me. His voice cracked. "Madeline, listen. This is business. You don't have to."
"To what?"
"Fire you the way you plan to reject me?" I tilted my head. "Don't worry, Derek. I don't hold grudges." He let out a breath of relief. "But," I added, "I don't reward incompetence either. Consider this your last day." His face crumbled. I could see the panic in his eyes, the weight of his downfall crashing down on him. But I wasn't cruel. Unlike him, I believed in second chances. "There's a small agency downtown that could use an experienced marketing director," I said, standing up. "The pay won't be as luxurious as what you're used to, but it's better than nothing." Derek stared at me, stunned. Why would you help me?" I shrugged. "Because, unlike you, I know the value of lifting people up." And with that, I walked out just like I had 2 months ago. Only this time, I wasn't the one leaving in defeat. As I stepped out of the boardroom, my heartbeat slowed, but the adrenaline still coursed through my veins. The moment had been surreal. Derek Lancaster, the man who had humiliated me in front of an entire office, now sat in silence, staring at the ruins of his once powerful empire. The victory was sweet, but it was also heavier than I expected. I exhaled, shaking my head slightly. I wasn't going to gloat. No, that wasn't the kind of person I had worked so hard to become. I wanted to build something meaningful, something that wasn't fueled by petty revenge, but by real success. As I walked down the hallway, former Lancaster employees, stared at me with mixed expressions. Some looked nervous, others relieved, and a few hopeful. I stopped near the break room, where a small group whispered among themselves. A woman I recognized as Hannah, one of the junior marketing specialists, caught my eye and quickly looked away. "Everything okay?" I asked, offering a small smile. She hesitated, then nodded. We weren't sure what was going to happen to us." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Of course. Derek's downfall wasn't just his, it had consequences for everyone who had worked under him. "Look," I said, stepping closer. "I'm not here to destroy what's left of this company. I'm here to rebuild it. The toxic culture is gone, but those who worked hard and want to stay, they still have a place here." I saw relief wash over their faces. "That includes you, Hannah," I added. "I remember how you worked overtime on those campaigns while Derek ignored your ideas." "I won't ignore them." Her eyes widened in shock. You remember that?" I nodded. "Of course." For the first time since I arrived, the tension in the room seemed to ease. Maybe, just maybe, this place had a future after all. Later that evening, I sat in my new office, the very same office Derek used to occupy. The weight of my journey settled onto my shoulders. Just 2 months ago, I had left this building humiliated, vowing to prove myself. Now I owned it. But was I truly satisfied? I glanced at the digital clock on my desk. It was past 10. My employees had all gone home, but I stayed behind, alone with my thoughts. I tapped my fingers against the desk. There was still one last thing I had to do. I reached for my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. After a few rings, a familiar voice answered. "Madeline." I swallowed. "Hey, Mom." A long silence followed. "I heard about what happened," she finally said. "Everyone's talking about how you bought Lancaster Marketing. Is it true?" I let out a small chuckle. "Yeah, it's true." Another pause. Then a sigh. "You did it, sweetheart. You really did it." I leaned back, my chest tightening at her words. For years, I had fought to prove myself. Not just to Derek, not just to the world, but to my own family. Mom always worried about me taking risks. She wanted me to stay in a stable job, to avoid the uncertainty of starting something new. "Mom," I said quietly, "I need you to know, I didn't do this just to get back at Derek. I did it for me, to build something of my own." She was silent for a moment. Then, "I'm proud of you, Maddie." I smiled, closing my eyes for a brief second. "Thanks, Mom. That means a lot." For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. But my story wasn't over yet. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, a fresh cup of coffee in my hand. I had an important meeting with one of my biggest clients, a partnership deal that could elevate digital into an industry leader. As I settled into my chair, my assistant, Jordan, knocked and stepped inside. "Madeline, Mr. Carter from Innovate Tech is here to see you." I nodded. "Send him in." A tall man in a sharp navy suit entered, his expression unreadable. "Miss Carter," he greeted, extending his hand. "Mr. Carter," I replied, shaking it firmly. He sat across from me, placing a folder on the desk. "Let's get straight to the point. I've been watching your work. Your agency has potential. But I want to know, are you in this for the long haul?" I met his gaze head-on. "Absolutely." He studied me for a moment before sliding the folder toward me. "Then let's make history together." I opened the folder and scanned the document inside. My breath caught in my throat. A partnership with Innovate Tech would change everything. It would solidify my company as a powerhouse. I looked back at him and smiled. "Let's do it." A week later, I received an email from Derek Lancaster. Subject: a favor. I hesitated before opening it. "Madeline, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I made a lot of mistakes, and I don't expect forgiveness. But I need help. I lost everything, and no one in this industry will give me another chance. I'm willing to take any job, even if it's at the bottom. If you could find it in yourself to let me work for you, I'd be grateful. Derek. I stared at the screen, emotions swirling inside me. Derek, the man who once mocked me, was now asking for my help. I thought about ignoring the email. I thought about letting him suffer the way he made me suffer. But then I remembered who I was. I typed my response. Derek, everyone deserves a second chance. Report to the office on Monday. You'll start as a junior consultant. The same position I had when I worked under you. Madeline. I hit send. Maybe Derek would change. Maybe he wouldn't. But I had built my success on kindness and resilience, not bitterness. And that was the ultimate revenge. The morning Derek was due to start, I arrived at the office early. I wanted to see how he would handle stepping into a role far beneath what he was used to. Jordan, my assistant, knocked hesitantly on my office door. Madeline, Derek is here. I could tell by his tone that it was awkward. Send him in, I said, adjusting my blazer. A moment later, Derek stepped into the office. He looked different. The usual arrogance that had once defined him was gone. His expensive suits had been replaced by something more modest. There was a nervousness in his posture, an uncertainty in his eyes. I gestured for him to sit. He hesitated before lowering himself into the chair across from me. You look well, I said, watching him closely. He let out a dry chuckle. You don't have to lie, Madeline. I tilted my head. You're right. I don't. For a long moment, we sat in silence. It was strange seeing him like this, humbled and unsure of himself. The same man who had laughed at me, who had made me feel small, was now sitting before me, waiting for my approval. You start today as a junior consultant, I finally said. Your tasks will be assigned by Hannah. You remember her, right? His eyes flickered with recognition.
Yeah.
She used to be a junior marketer. Not anymore, I corrected. She's the head of our marketing division now. I watched as the realization sank in. The same employees he had ignored, dismissed, and overlooked had now risen above him. You'll report to her. Derek swallowed. Understood. I leaned forward. You're here because I believe in second chances, Derek. But if you show even a fraction of the arrogance you used to have, you're out. No warnings, no negotiations. He nodded, his hands clasped together. I get it. I won't mess this up. Good, I said, standing up. Now go meet your new boss. The office buzzed with murmurs as Derek stepped out of my office. Employees who had once worked under him now saw him as an equal. No, less than that. Hannah met him at her desk, her expression unreadable.
Derek, she said.
Hannah, he replied stiffly. She handed him a folder. Your first assignment. Market analysis for our upcoming campaign. Due by Friday. Derek nodded, looking through the papers. Understood. She hesitated, then added, I hope you take this seriously. People here remember how you treated them. His jaw tightened, but he gave a small nod. I know. I don't expect them to forgive me overnight. Good, she said, then turned back to her work, dismissing him. For the first time, Derek was just another employee. No special privileges. No admiration. Just another cog in the machine. As the weeks passed, I kept a close eye on Derek. He worked hard, kept his head down, and never complained. It was strange seeing him like this, almost as if he was a different man. But I wasn't convinced yet. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I noticed him still at his desk, staring at his screen. Burning the midnight oil? I asked, leaning against the doorframe. He looked up, rubbing his eyes. Yeah, old habits, I guess. I stepped closer. Why are you really here, Derek? Is this just temporary until you find a way back to the top? He sighed, shaking his head.
No.
I lost everything, Madeline. My reputation, my confidence, my friends. I had a lot of time to think after Lancaster Marketing went under. I studied him carefully. And what did you realize? He gave a weak chuckle. That I was an ass. I raised an eyebrow. An understatement. He chuckled again, but this time there was sadness behind it. I deserve to lose everything. But I don't want to be that guy anymore. I nodded slowly. Then prove it. He looked at me, confused. Don't just say you've changed, I continued. Show it. Earn back the respect you threw away. For the first time, Derek met my gaze with something real, determination. I will, he said. I wasn't sure if I believed him yet, but for the first time, I was willing to wait and see. Weeks turned into months. Under my leadership, the company flourished. Elevate Digital was now a name to be reckoned with, and Lancaster Marketing was no longer a symbol of failure. It was a stepping stone to something greater. And Derek? He worked harder than anyone else in the office. He never demanded credit, never sought attention. One day, I saw Hannah talking to him. She was no longer cold. She was smiling. And he was smiling back. Maybe, just maybe, redemption was possible. 1 year later, I stood in front of my employees, addressing them at our annual company gala. A year ago, I stood in this very building, but under very different circumstances. I began. I came back not as an employee, but as an owner. And today, I'm proud to say that we have built something extraordinary. The crowd erupted into applause. As I scanned the room, my eyes landed on Derek. He stood quietly at the back, a look of quiet pride on his face. After the event, he approached me. You've built something amazing, he said. I smiled. We did. He nodded. Thank you, Madeline, for giving me a second chance. I took a deep breath, then extended my hand. He hesitated, then shook it. Don't mess it up, I warned playfully. He smirked. Wouldn't dream of it. For the first time, there was no arrogance, no ego, just mutual respect. And that was a victory greater than revenge. Running a successful company wasn't just about proving a point. It was about sustaining success, building a culture of excellence, and making sure Elevate Digital thrived. With our recent expansion and the acquisition of Lancaster Marketing, our client portfolio had doubled. But with growth came challenges. One afternoon, Jordan knocked on my door, his expression tense. Madeline, we have a problem. I set my coffee down. What is it? A major client, Westwood Enterprises, is threatening to pull out of their contract. They claim we're not meeting their expectations. I frowned. Westwood was one of our biggest accounts. Losing them would be a disaster. Set up a meeting with their CEO. I'll handle it. 2 days later, I walked into Westwood Enterprises headquarters. Their CEO, Jonathan Reese, greeted me with a firm handshake but wasted no time getting to the point. Madeline, I respect what you've built, he said. But my team has concerns. We don't think your agency can handle the scale of our upcoming projects. I met his gaze, unwavering. Mr. Reese, I understand your concerns, but I don't think this is about our capabilities. It's about trust. He raised an eyebrow. You took a chance on Elevate Digital, and now that we're growing fast, you're worried we can't maintain the same level of service. I continued. But I assure you, my team is more than capable. In fact, I've personally ensured we have the best talent in the industry, including people who used to work for you. That got his attention. You hired former Westwood employees? He asked, intrigued. I smiled. Let's just say talent finds its way to the right leadership. Reese chuckled. You're confident. I have to be. He studied me for a moment before nodding. All right, Madeline. You have 2 months to prove me wrong. Show me Elevate Digital is the right choice. I extended my hand. You won't regret it. Securing Westwood's trust wasn't just about making promises. It was about delivering results. I gathered my team, ensuring everyone understood what was at stake. We have 60 days to show Westwood why they need us. This isn't just about keeping a client. It's about proving that we're the best. The energy in the room shifted. People were ready to step up. And surprisingly, Derek was the first to volunteer for the project. I know the way Westwood thinks, he said. I worked on their campaigns back at Lancaster. I can help. I hesitated. This was a high-risk project, and giving Derek that much responsibility was a gamble. But this was his chance to prove himself. "All right," I said. "Don't let me down." Derek worked harder than ever. He was in the office before everyone else and left long after everyone had gone home. He triple-checked data, analyzed market trends, and even took junior employees under his wing. A month in, Hannah pulled me aside. "I think Derek's changed," she admitted. "He's actually helping people." I glanced toward the office, where Derek was explaining a campaign strategy to one of our newer employees. The old Derek would never have done that. Maybe people really could change. The day of our presentation arrived. Reese and his executive sat in front of me, waiting for my pitch. I took a deep breath and began. For an hour, I outlined Elevate Digital's strategy, data-driven, innovative, and tailored specifically for Westwood's growth. When I finished, Reese leaned back, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled. "You've outdone yourself, Madeline," he said. "We're staying with Elevate Digital, and I'd like to discuss an even bigger contract moving forward." Relief washed over me. We had done it. That night, I stood in my office, looking out over the city. I had come so far from being humiliated by Derek to building an empire on my own terms. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Derek. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said, his voice genuine, "for giving me a second chance." I nodded. "You earned it." He smiled, and for the first time, I saw something I never thought I'd see in him: gratitude. As he left, I turned back to the window, letting the moment sink in. Success wasn't just about revenge. It was about growth, resilience, and proving, above all else, that I was unstoppable. And that was the greatest victory of all.